Let's talk about GUI bloat for a second. If you've been using AI coding assistants lately, you absolutely know the drill, right? You're constantly context switching, you're moving your eyes, grabbing the mouse, leaving your terminal, and going over to some separate side panel or embedded chat window just to get your AI to write or review some code. Well, in today's explainer, we're looking at a solution that completely flips this paradigm on its head, Claude Code. This is an agentic coding tool built by Anthropic, and the kicker? It lives right where you already work, natively in your terminal.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by meeting Claude Code, then we'll talk about the human-in-the-loop philosophy. After that, we'll cover installation and setup, getting through that first run and basic commands, and finally, we'll wrap up with its seamless VS Code integration.
All right, Section 1, Meet Claude Code, the terminal native AI. So there's actually a pretty fascinating architectural divide happening in AI tools right now. On one side of the fence, you've got fantastic, highly popular agentic tools like Copilot, Cursor, or Windsurf. And don't get me wrong, these are incredibly powerful, but they're fundamentally embedded GUIs. They kind of force you into their specific user interface within the IDE. But then, on the other side, we have Claude Code. The massive differentiator here is that it's completely terminal native. You're interacting with it directly via your command line. And what that means is it integrates with your existing development workflow so much more seamlessly. You aren't forced to switch up your favorite IDE or, learn a completely new visual interface from scratch.
Let's actually break down how this works under the hood. Claude Code isn't just a glorified autocomplete. It has full agentic capabilities. It can autonomously analyze, plan, write, and edit your code. But honestly, the real magic, the part that is genuinely mind-blowing when you first experience it, is its deep contextual awareness. Based on what developers are saying, Claude Code really sets itself apart by profoundly understanding the specific code base you drop it into. It generates code that is highly tailored, project by project. Plus, it features deep Git integration, meaning it can literally execute bash commands right there in your terminal. You can even hook the whole thing into your GitHub workflows to completely automate code reviews on pull requests or have it independently resolve open issues. It's wild.
Moving on to Section 2, the human-in-the-loop philosophy and some best practices.
I want you to consider this warning from a developer who's been heavily analyzing the tool. They said, letting the AI loose to code everything is not a productive workflow, and it can lead to more bugs, sloppy code, and technical debt. I mean, that perfectly validates the worst fear pretty much all of us have about AI coding tools, right? If you just let an agent run totally wild, you're absolutely going to end up with an unmaintainable mess. So look, the point of this explainer isn't about how to replace the developer. It's about empowering them.
The absolute crucial takeaway here is that you have to maintain control. The best practice is a hands-on approach. You want to code alongside Claude on tasks and features that are narrow and super focused in scope. You really need to check its work as you go. By staying in the loop and manually reviewing the generated code, you're making sure your project stays clean, less buggy, and actually easy to maintain a year from now. Think of it this way. You are the architect, and Claude is just your hyper-efficient builder.
Okay, Section 3, Installation and Setup. Let's get you started.
Before you even open your terminal, let's quickly go over the prerequisites. If you're on the free $0 plan, you actually don't have access to Claude Code right now. That only covers the web and desktop apps. To use this terminal tool, you do need to be on the Pro plan, which runs $17 a month, or the Premium Max plan. With Pro, you get really solid usage limits that reset roughly every 5 hours. Plus, you get helpful little warnings when you're getting close to your cap. It gives you access to both the Sonic 4 and Opus 4.1 models. But here's a quick pro tip for you. The Opus model will chew through your usage limits way faster. So defaulting to Sonic for your day-to-day tasks is highly recommended if you want to save on those limits.
Once your account is good to go, the actual installation is an absolute breeze. You just run npm install-g at anthropic-ai/Claude Code globally in your terminal. And oh, here's a fantastic surprise for my Windows users out there. Historically, you'd have needed to install something like this via the Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, but not anymore. You can run this command natively, directly in your standard Windows terminal right now.
Section 4, First Run and Commands. Let's initialize the session.
So you navigate to your project directory, you type Claude, and you hit Enter. You'll instantly be greeted with a really quick interactive setup. First, you just pick a UI theme, obviously dark mode, right? Next, it'll pop open a quick browser window so you can authenticate your subscription, and once you're in, you hit the most critical phase, granting file trust. Claude is going to explicitly ask if you trust the files in that current folder.
Let's pause for a second on why that step is so unbelievably important. There's this thing called a prompt injection risk. Basically, it's a security vulnerability where malicious input hidden in some code can secretly alter an AI's behavior. Because Claude Code is actively reading your files, if you were to download an untrusted repository that happens to contain malicious prompt injections, the AI could potentially execute unwanted actions right there on your machine. So this is exactly why Claude puts up a hard gate and requires you to explicitly grant file trust before it reads a single line of your codebase. Safety absolutely comes first.
Once you've granted that trust, you're looking at a blank chat interface right there in your terminal. If you happen to be jumping into a completely new repository, say a colleague's project, try hitting it with this prompt. Can you provide me with a summary of what this project is? Claude will immediately go to work analyzing the codebase, reading the README, checking out the tech stack, and then it'll spit out a fully cohesive summary directly in the command line. It's just an incredible way to instantly grasp the context of a brand new repo.
Oh, and before you start coding heavily, there's one quick configuration command you absolutely need to run, and that's /terminal setup. When you execute this inside the Claude prompt, it installs the Shift+Enter key binding for creating new lines in your chat. Without it, hitting Enter just sends the prompt immediately, which is incredibly frustrating when you're trying to write out a long multi-line instruction. So yeah, /terminal setup is a massive quality of life improvement. Don't skip it.
Finally, Section 5, VS Code Integration. Seamless support.
Now, if you happen to run the Claude command inside VS Code's integrated terminal, it actually auto-installs its very own extension, brilliantly bridging that gap between the terminal and your editor. For example, it has active tab awareness, so Claude sees exactly what file you currently have open on your screen. You can easily spot any AI-made changes with its diff viewing, or you can even highlight code directly in your editor to inject it straight into Claude's context. Plus, there are a bunch of handy keyboard shortcuts. Anthropic clearly thought long and hard about how developers naturally work, and they built this entire integration precisely around that flow.
I do have a highly practical piece of advice for your first day, though. Please, make sure to use a throwaway project in case things go horribly wrong. I mean, we've all been there with shiny new tools, right? While you're learning the ropes with Claude Code, maybe don't unleash it on your production database repository on day one. Spin up a dummy starter project. At the very least, make sure your project is safely under version control, like Git, so if the agent does happen to generate a massive cascade of messy code, you can easily just discard the unwanted changes.
And actually, speaking of Git, Claude's Git integration is phenomenal, but it's fundamentally built around that concept of safety we talked about earlier. You can ask Claude to switch to a new branch. Let's just call it Claude Edits, so you have a safe sandbox to experiment in. Claude will literally propose the exact bash command to execute that branch switch, and it will always ask for your explicit permission before actually running it. Once you approve it, it can autonomously stage files, commit changes, and even help you merge or resolve those annoying Git conflicts. It handles all the tedious terminal commands, but you always retain the final say on the execute button.
So, let's wrap this up with a final thought. If an AI agent lives natively right there in your terminal, seamlessly executes bash commands, and deeply truly understands the exact context of your entire codebase, what limits are left on what you can build today? Claude Code strips away the friction of context switching and drops some seriously incredible agentic power right at your fingertips. The terminal is yours to command.